This is the third part of Module 4 and the last part. What we're going to do in this part of the module is to build a collector application. Collector is an app that you can download onto your smart device. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. Where you can do field data collection. And that's the critical thing, that we're doing field data collection. And to be able to do field data collection, which means we're adding new data or modifying data by being out in the field, you need to have the ability to edit the geodatabase. And to edit the geodatabase means it must be a relational geodatabase. It can either be your own personal relational geodatabase, which means you created a feature service on your own Arc server, or it can be part of ArcGIS Online, which has the ability to create feature classes for us. Once we have that feature service, then we build basically we build a collector map, and then we can go out with our smart device and collect data. Now, to use a smart device correctly, it's got to have a true GPS built into it. All phones have true GPSs built into them, but not all tablets have a true GPS built into it. So you need to check with your manufacturer to see if your tablet has a true GPS in it. This only works on Android and Apple products. It will not work on a Windows-based phone or a Windows tablet. You would have to use a web browser for either one of those to do this type of data collection. There are also open source versions of the same type of product, but we're going to concentrate on the Esri product, which is known as Collector. So what the Collector is going to do is you go out, say you're identifying trees, you take a data point, you can photograph the tree, you can give some details about the tree like the height, the diameter, things like that. You can record all this while you're out in the field, and if you have the right permissions set up, you can then upload that immediately online. So that's what Collector is. Before you build your own Collector app, it is strongly suggested that you go out and use a Collector app, because if you don't know what it really is doing, then it's hard to build your own to make sure that it does it the way you want it to be done. So it's very strongly suggested that you use a Collector app before you go out there. We've created quite a few at the GeoTech Center that are just very simple play applications like location of lamp poles, all kinds of stuff like that. But it's important that you have a knowledge of what Collector apps can do before you try to build your own. We also suggest that you use domains. If you're not familiar with domains, we have a concept video about what domains are, but what a domain gives you the ability to do is basically pre-program what's going to be under a certain box. So for example, if you're collecting data and you want to know what state you're in, you can have all 50 states pre-programmed in as a domain, and then you use a pull down and select the appropriate state that you're actually taking the data from. That way you don't have to worry about trying to type it. You know, if you're using a phone, a lot of times the screen's fairly small and you're trying to type on the keyboard and you make typos and errors like that. This way, by having a domain, you just use a pull down, select the right state, and it records that state for you. So anything that's going to be a redundant type of comment that you're going to use while you're out in the field, you want to have a domain in which this is identifiable in. We've given you a link to a very good tutorial about Collector. I suggest that you watch that. It's not something that we created. It was created by Esri. So it's a very good tutorial about it. Again, the key here is we must have a feature service. If you don't have a feature service, then you cannot use Collector. It will not even show up in Collector because it knows, Collector does, that you cannot make modifications of a map service, and therefore it's not going to be there. It's more than just a service because you need to create a base map like what we did in the previous module and things, so you actually have a map there. So you got to have an actual map there. It can be very rudimentary. It doesn't have to actually be done in the web application like we did before. It can just be that you bring the service in and you create a map to go along with it. Choose what the base map's going to be. In the examples that we use, we normally use OpenStreetMap, but you can use what you'd like. OpenStreetMap's a nice, clean base map to use. The map should be zoomed to your region that you're working in, where the data is going to be from. You can do this dynamically, or you can do it by selecting the region yourself. So you got to sign into ArcGIS, locate the feature layer that should already have been created, creating the feature layer like what you did before. So you can go out and create a feature layer like what we did in the first part of the second video for Module 4. Create that feature layer, or create a layer in your desktop and then bring it into ArcGIS and make that layer be a feature layer. Now all the data in that layer then would be stored in ArcGIS and not on your local machine. And we'll talk about enterprise ways that things should look in just a moment. So one of the things that we're going to do is we've got this one for Adair County that we've done. It's an open data source that you could use if you need to. Hopefully you can create your own. So we have a feature service that we made in ArcGIS Online. We actually built the original map in ArcMap, the desktop version, and then sent it up to ArcGIS Online and made it a feature layer. So once it's a feature layer, we just come in and highlight the layer name and click the 3 dots. We configure the pop-up so those 3 dots are over on the right hand side for more information than what's showing up in your menu normally. We configure the pop-up, because the pop-up is where you're going to put data. That's the most important thing of building the Collector app, is that you configure that pop-up correctly, and that includes defining domains that can be in a pull down. And then you're going to share your map, and you're going to save your map. If you've never saved your map, it's going to require you to save it before you can share it. So these 2 items must happen. Again, this only works for an Android or an Apple phone, and you have to download the Collector app from the appropriate location for this app. Again, we said there's not an app for a Windows-based phone. You have to sign in on the app, so you have to have your ArcGIS account available to you so you can sign into it. You're only going to see those areas that you have permission to be in. So if you're not in the right group, you're not going to have permission there. You're not going to see someone else's Collector app and things. So therefore, we suggest that you share it out to your study group. By sharing it out to your study group, you'll be able to look at what other people have done in their Collector maps. Once you've created your Collector map, go out with your smart device and start taking data, basically. So a few things to make sure we're aware of. This is for field data collection, and it's using the GPS that's built into your device. Now, it is possible to put an external GPS on a device if it doesn't have a true GPS built into it. That makes it a little bit more difficult for you, because now you're holding your device that you're trying to record data with, and you're also holding your GPS, so that makes it a little bit more difficult for you. Your data may be in ArcGIS as your data repository, but a lot of times you want to make sure that the data you're collecting in a production environment is behind your own firewall. So that's why you're going to need to have your own relational database. By having your own relational database, you're just taking that map feature service from your ArcGIS server, which is connected to your relational database, and using that. Remember, relational databases never have public IP addresses. So when you're working on this enterprise level, you want to make sure you can have different things visible. So I have a feature class that I'm consuming in Collector through ArcGIS Online. Now there's ways that you don't have to really use ArcGIS Online. We won't worry about those in this setting. But we want that connected back to our relational database. Relational database is behind the firewall, ArcGIS server in front of the firewall. You're porting data between the 2 items. You send your feature class service to ArcGIS. You make a map there. ArcGIS collects. You can then go out with Collector and collect data on your map. And when you collect a data point and you submit it, it goes all the way back to your relational database server behind your firewall. So this is real critical for an enterprise level item, that you want to make sure that your data is protected. But for a lot of applications, you could just have your data repository being in ArcGIS also. As we said, create a map in ArcGIS Online that displays your data. Other people can look at your data because remember when you created your feature class, you also can create a map service at the same time. And so you can have your map service going out through a Silverlight map, for example, and people being able to look at your Silverlight map. And anytime you make a change and they refresh their screen in Silverlight, then they're going to see your new data point collected. So you can see data points almost collected in real time. So that's what we would do for the general population, to see your live map and see data changes that are being made. Sometimes in organizations, you have lots of people out there doing field data collection. Say, for example, with the Department of Transportation, you have lots of people collecting data, maybe data on where potholes are, and you actually want a reviewer before those go actually live to the general population. So they send the data to the local server, but that local server doesn't refresh except every 24 hours or something, and somebody reviews that data to make sure the data is valid before it goes out public. So the final thing for Module 4 is a fairly extensive case study where you're going to find a real-world problem. You choose the problem. We're not going to choose the problem for you. You're going to complete a functional diagram of an enterprise-level field data collection situation, which then is displayed to the general public on a Flex Viewer application. Make sure you label the services that are editable and those are not, so make sure you know which are the feature class services and which are not the feature class services. Don't forget about the designer has to be in there. Where's the designer at who designs the service? Make sure you put a firewall in where you need to have firewalls appropriately. Make sure you show when things go to ArcGIS Online. And so you're going to build this situation. You're going to diagram it. Then you're going to create for us an ArcGIS Online map that can be utilized in Collector. Make sure it's visible to all your fellow students so they can make comments on your Collector application, and you can make comments on their Collector applications. Remember, these are constructive critiques. These are not anything other than a professionally done critique. Be honest with people, what works well, what does not work well. That's one of the ways we learn. And make sure you provide the URL to your instructor and your fellow classmates so that they can do the critiquing. So this ends what you're going to be doing in the 4th module using ArcGIS Online.